was standing in a crowd of people one day when I overheard a conversation. A woman said she knew someone who believed God for a husband. I stopped. I said, "Can you do that? Can you believe God for a man and he'll just show up?" Sounds good to me. If she can do it, I can do it too. At that point in my life, I needed a little divine assistance. Well, one day he did show up. We both worked for the same company, a computer company. He walked right up to my desk, introduced himself, and we went for coffee. As we talked, I noticed something different about him. And it wasn't that sharp three-piece suit he had on. No, it was something deeper. I noticed in him a spiritual passion and fire that I had never seen before. I thought I was looking for a husband, but God was just using him as bait to get my attention and to reel me in. Oh, I had been brought up in church, but it became obvious to me that this man I had just met, who later became my husband, had something that I didn't have. I was excited about my church. He was excited about God, and there is a difference. He had experienced a transformation that was phenomenal. It was contagious, and I caught it. I was dramatically changed. The date was February 27th, 1983. I remember so clearly that following week at work, meeting with my manager and his boss, my branch manager. This is what I told them. "I've been through the most amazing experience. I got born again and spirit-filled, and I feel so alive." And I told my boss, my passion shifted instantly from a career in business to connecting people back with God. So much for job security. So eventually, my husband and I, we left the company, and we started our current ministry in a tiny two-room storefront church in a high-crime area of Chicago. You may wonder, okay, how can two business professionals just up and leave their jobs, their security and their benefits, with no budget, no resources, just a vision to change lives and faith in God? It doesn't make sense. But that's the nature of transformations of the heart. You are never the same. And now we are reaching people all over the world through ministry, business, and education. Personal transformation is a powerful catalyst that moves us to create change in the lives of others. It becomes contagious. We feel compelled to pay it forward. Like the person who lost 100 pounds and is now a health crusader, or someone whose lowest point in life launched them to be a personal life coach. Every influence for good won't be a matter of life and death, but life events knock at our door, sometimes unexpectedly. How will we respond? An encouraging word at the right moment can make the world of difference to someone. One person can't do everything, but everyone has something to contribute to uplift the lives of others. Think about it. What can you do? Who have been the catalysts that have changed your life? Who have been your role models? I've had many of them, but just two of them are my mom and my husband. Mom was a primary school teacher for 33 years. She lived for the day when her students learned to read. In her words, a light goes on inside of them. So when the children would take turns reading aloud, she would purposely stop the lesson in the middle of the story, just when it was getting good, and she'd give them other assignments. They could only finish the story when they had finished their assignments. This way, she not only taught them to read, but she created in them a desire to read. The children who nobody else could do anything with, and every school has them, they put them in her class because she could inspire them to learn. What was her secret? Well, I must admit that Mom was kind of strict, especially the first 6 weeks of school. She didn't crack a smile. But after that, she loosened up a little bit. She even had her own piano shipped to her classroom. So on any given day, you might hear her playing a tune and the children singing along. Or you might hear her enthusiastically praising a child for a right answer. My mom, bless her heart, she was quite a character. But you know what? That just goes to show you that even characters can be a catalyst for change. Christmas Day, 1985. We were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, and out of the blue, my husband says, I feel led to buy someone some groceries. I said, okay, let's do it. Of course, being Christmas Day, all the grocery stores were closed. So we drove around until we could find a convenience store that was open. So as we drove up into the parking lot, I thought, okay, I sure hope we can find enough groceries for a decent Christmas meal. It would be totally embarrassing to offer someone some groceries of potato chips and candy bars. Well, thank God, we found a turkey with all the trimmings and then some. We were new to the city and didn't know our way around, but we finally made our way to the side of town that had low-income apartments. So we drove into the complex, and he questioned a couple of people. Do you know anyone who needs groceries? At the first answer, he said, that's not the one. So we continued to drive to the end of the complex, and he asked another young man, do you know anyone who needs groceries? He said, oh yeah, you're talking about Miss Love. She lives up on the second floor, and he walked away. So that cold Christmas morning, my husband got out of the car and walked up the stairs, leaving me and our 10-month-old son in the car. So he knocks on the door. At first, there's no answer, so he knocks again. Miss Love? A voice says, who is it? He says, my name is Bill Winston. I'm a preacher, and I have some groceries for you in the car. She flung open that door, praising God. And then she pointed to some children lined up on the couch. She said, these are my daughter's kids. She's on drugs, and we have no food in the house. She went to the refrigerator and opened the door, and it held only a mason jar of water. She continued, just this morning, my grandbabies asked me, Grandma, when are we going to eat? I said, don't worry, babies. God's going to provide some food for us. Isn't it interesting when we follow those moments of inspiration to help people that God shows up? You may say, okay, how does God show up? Well, when we follow his call to love one another, like buying groceries for someone, he can be seen everywhere and all the time. Because when love shows up, God shows up. Because God is love. Opportunities to be a catalyst for change are all around us. Just follow the cues. You may change the world, or you may change just one person who needs a kind touch through you. I can remember a few years ago when my mom passed, when we were preparing the funeral program, an idea came to mind. We wrote, in lieu of flowers, donations can be made to a memorial fund for children's books for Africa. Why Africa? Well, a few months earlier, I had accompanied my husband on a trip to South Africa. And I noticed in one of the libraries that the books were old and worn, no pictures, nothing to inspire a love for reading. So I made a mental note that if an opportunity came where I could help, I would. So the following year, we packaged up 3 suitcases full of colorful children's books, and we distributed them to Rwanda, Burundi, South Africa, Swaziland, and the last batch to Haiti. Those few books may not have revolutionized the school systems there, But for a few children, it transported their little imaginations to wonderful and beautiful places they never dreamed of. I can remember a time when our ministry team was scheduled to go on a mission trip, and there was a visit to an orphanage that was on the schedule. I wasn't going, but I wanted to do something to be a blessing to them. So I found myself in the department store wondering, what could I get them? And then the thought came, get all the children hoodies. So I found some navy blue ones. I went to the children's section, and there were just a few, so I had to go to the adult section to get enough to fill up an entire suitcase. As I walked up to the checkout counter, this voice starts in my head. Veronica, what are you doing? You're about to make a fool out of yourself. Have you ever been in the middle of doing a good deed and this battle starts in your head? I was right there at the register and this war was going on. Get them, don't get them, get them, don't get them. I finally said, Veronica, just write the check and get out of here. I don't know why it was such a struggle. But the good news is, when we can find the good news, there was a hoodie for every child, the exact number purchased. The teenagers got the larger ones, and as you see, they were all boys. Sometimes you just have to follow your heart and do it by faith. There was another time our ministry team was going to minister at a leaders' conference in Haiti. I wasn't going, but again, I wanted to send something, so what did I get? A suitcase. I filled it up with food, pancake mix, syrup, flour, and other dry goods. Now, I didn't know it, but a leaders' breakfast was scheduled as part of the conference. Can you imagine how it blessed my heart when I heard that food was right on time? It was exactly what I needed because the food originally provided for the breakfast was inedible. They found bugs in it and they had to throw it out. A suitcase full of food showing up unexpectedly. Would you call that a miracle? Well, to someone with a bunch of people to feed and no food, I'd say it was. Sometimes we really do care with our hearts, but it doesn't make its way to our actions. We feel strange and unnatural, awkward or embarrassed, or we fear being laughed at or ridiculed. But remember, courage is not the absence of these feelings and these fears, but it's the strength to continue a course of action in spite of them. So we need to wake up that inner compassion and let it run its course. I was always told we should be kind to people because we never know what they're going through. Remember what it was like when someone reached out to you? Let me ask you, what moves you? What excites you? What is calling you to action? Can I share with you a secret? The idea of everyone doing just a little bit and turning it into much, it didn't start with crowdfunding or .coms. It started with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Loving our neighbor, it's not a spectator sport. It's part of our culture and we need to keep it. It's part of our heritage that shows that we value people enough to get involved in their lives in ways great and small. Who we are today is a direct result of the influences that we have allowed to shape our own destiny. Let me say that again. Who we are today is a direct result of the influences that we have allowed to shape our own destiny. And isn't it a privilege to be able to shift someone's destiny towards the good? Some people say, oh, it's going to take a miracle to turn things around. Well, I do know one thing for sure. Miracles are happening every day. And who knows, to someone, you may just be that next miracle.